morning and welcome to Movement and Meditation. My name is Patton White and I'm coming to you from the Beacon Dance Studio at the B Complex in the Capitol View neighborhood of Southwest Atlanta, Georgia. And today in our Movement and Meditation, we're going to be spending some time returning to some of the movement that we did on Monday and having it filtered through the conversation, the story circle that we had on Wednesday. And the theme for that story circle, the prompt was, when have you, or to share a story of a time that you have felt flow, a sense of flow. And so we're going to return to some of that same movement that we were doing on Monday, but using some of the themes or ideas that came up during the story sharing itself. And we're going to begin with the hands again, and we're going to, as we did before, just press both palms together. And if you can, sorry about that. You can be doing this either seated or standing, however you prefer to be working today. And our pressure on both of our hands is equal. So it's balanced right in between the two, and the amount of pressure that you're putting into this can be up to you. It can be a forceful amount, it can be just very light. So how many of the muscles that are involved with this is entirely up to you. And we're going to send the hands one direction to one side or the other with this idea of this is the right time for that to happen. So for yourself, noticing when one side begins to push, the other side begins to perhaps yield a little bit. But again, we're finding when is the right time. And the right time is also that going back in the opposite direction. So finding that balance between the two. Pressing, yielding, pressing or yielding. Finding this sense of boundaries, of fine articulation. But noticing for yourself when the time is right to go from one side to the other. And you can also decide for yourself when is the time right for you to make it a looser action, perhaps not as much effort, softening. This is sort of reminding me of that game that some of you may have played as a child, Ouija, the Ouija board, with people's hands on the little thing, and we're not really sure where it's going to go, when it's going to go. We just know that it's happening because for that moment, the time is right. And let's shift now. Instead of just a side to side, this idea of a circularity. So we're playing with forwards and backwards and side to side. But finding for yourself when is the time right for the hands to begin to open away from each other. And again, this idea of tossing a ball. When is the time right? This is the right time. And now moving back into our, let's play with different fingertips and fingertips reaching towards one another rather than just one across the other. Finding for yourself, how are you deciding when is the right time to shift from from one fingertip connection to another. And all of this is okay. None of it is right, none of it is wrong. It is all exactly what you need to be finding as far as fingertip to fingertip action. When is the right time for that thumb or finger to come into contact with each other? And now let's shift to kind of what we did at the very end of our lymphatic fluids last time, which was to shift to the skin and feeling and sensing in the skin, first on the back of one hand. Let's take the palm as well. In this case, we're moving on to this idea of anticipating and responding. So we're anticipating where our fingers are going to journey. We're going to respond with that arm that is providing the surface for the journey. Anticipating and responding. Really trying to limit our manipulation, our palpation to just the skin itself, rather than trying to massage into the muscle tissue. Let's shift to the opposite side now. We can combine these two ideas too. This is the right time, and anticipating and responding. Taking some time to explore all skin surfaces of the fingers, the hands, the palms. And again, when the time is right, anticipating the journey up the arm. Noticing too what we may be discovering about the texture, about the elasticity of the skin. The tone, as Bonnie likes to say, of different parts of the body. She talks about tone in the muscles, tone in the organs. And the skin is one of our organs as well. Finding the tone of our skin itself. Again, trying to really stick at the surface itself. And that idea of brushing up from the fingertips when the time is right to the center of the body, or to the armpit where the arm comes in to the torso. Let's try this with the head as well. Into, and now let's add some working from the extremities, feeling the skin of the legs, the kneecaps, where the skin might be a little bit looser, skin on the underneath side of the leg, working up towards the hip sockets, the pelvis, trying the opposite side when the time is right. Working the skin back up towards the center of the body. And now we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to listen a little bit more to the music that's playing softly in the background. And we're going to go into this idea of the free flow of the cerebrospinal fluid again. It's flowing from the brain down to the tail and back up. And allowing first just the action of the spine, releasing, scooping, so finding a moment to lead with the tail, a moment to lead with the head. Flow when listening, so the actions of that forwards and backwards action, the actions of incorporating the arms, all of this is going to be things we can be playing with. Let's listen to the music. Perhaps the music is shifting where in the body you want the movement. The sense of the free flow, the sense of the cerebrospinal fluid flowing from top to bottom. We can do some playing too with body halves. The same idea we were exploring before of moving forwards, moving back, or retreating, so advancing, retreating. Sticking with this idea of the free flow, listening, perhaps just one limb is active, trading it off to the other side. Homologous movement, top half, bottom half. And our cross lateral. Again, finding the overlaps between the fluid systems that we're playing with and these terms that we discovered. This is the right time. When is the right time for you to shift from one direction, from one limb, whether it's detailed, like I'm playing right now with my foot, shift feet for equal opportunity, responding to the flow that I'm sensing with the music itself. And now I'm going to find this idea of the cross lateral, shoulder, foot reaching towards one another. And the shoulder and the foot doing their own little mini dance, shifting to the other side. Now just the feet. Scoot back just a little bit, making sure that you can see what my feet are doing. Flow. When the time is right, noticing when you're going to pick your foot up off the floor, when you're going to place it back on the floor. Anticipating, responding. And we'll continue with our next term, which is predictability. So one of the things we are paying attention to now is how predictable is the sequence that I'm playing with. What patterns exist within my body that have developed over years that just feel like that's what should happen next? What are they for you? Let's stick with my feet for a little bit longer. That's an example of a pattern that's developed in my body that is predictable because of that idea of going from one side and then back to the other. The unpredictable thing might be that I break out of that and don't continue the repetition of that itself. But, you know, the unpredictability thing comes in too in an unpredictable way. All right, let's go back to this idea of the moving on to our next fluid state, which that we were examining last Monday. We did the synovial fluids, so our joint fluids, and these are about, instead of flow, it's about looseness, shaking. And with this, we're going to have a sense of free flow of personal feedback. So it's also kind of related to the predictability thing. Free flow of personal feedback. Loose joints. Let's just shake out our shoulders. And the other shoulder. So one at a time. Allowing the wrist, the hand to be completely released. So the jiggling or shaking of our synovial fluids allows for a free flow of the distal limb. And I'm shifting into the spinal joints now. How can you isolate for yourself the joints in the neck itself? Little minute, little tiny, tiny, tiny shakes or releases. Going all up and down the cervical region of our spine. It can be slow, it can be faster. But releasing, loosening, and now into the thoracic region. So the area around the rib cage. How much mobility can we find in the spinal area around the rib cage? For me, it's one of the most challenging parts of the spine to find mobility in. My neck is the easiest. My lumbar is next, even though that's a challenge itself, but I feel very challenged to get much mobility in the rib cage area, partly because I kind of feel like the rib cage itself, and it's all these joints, and if we just really find the sense of looseness in where the ribs intersect with the each individual vertebra, how they come around to the sternum. flow of personal feedback. So I'm allowing this free-flowing synovial fluid to give myself personal feedback in terms of where I'm finding less mobility and more mobility. I'm going to shift now down into the lumbar region of the spine. Little circles with the lumbar region of the spine, helping to accomplish this by allowing the pelvis to tilt around. That bowl image of pouring water. Now let's go slow and sustained, but try to keep this idea of looseness. We're going to borrow some Qigong movement for this, just to bring us slowly back towards finishing up for today. Breathing in and out. Backs of the wrists, bring our hands up, palms pressing down. Opening the flow. For Qigong, this is our energy, but we're double dating, if you will, this idea of fluids and energy working in combination with each other. And inhaling, exhaling. Our organs are part of this as well. Now we're going to expand our flow, pressing forward and in and lower. Backs of the wrists rise up, pulling in and pressing to the front. Pulling in and releasing down. Finding that looseness in the joints of our synovial fluid state. And we're going to now shift into our opening to the 6 directions, pressing forwards, pressing out to the sides, coming back in and lowering down. Nice and slow. We're going to do 2 more sets of this, finding perhaps all 3 of these fluid states at play, finding the boundaries, so how far you can reach with the limbs, the free flowing of the cerebrospinal fluid, and the looseness of the joints, the synovial fluid. And now we're going to shift into our sequential one side and then the other. And for this one, I'm actually thinking of the connection between the pressing of my foot into the floor, which then allows my arm to float up, pressing. It sends energy all through from the floor out to that side of the body, to the fingertips. And a couple more of these. And last one. And now we're going to finish up today with a reconnection of this energy brushing down. So our fingers, our hands, it's not in physical contact with the arm, but rather the energy whoever is playing this is full of energy. You're really hearing the background music right now. It's harpsichordists. Their fingers must just be flying. They have so much energy. Last set. And now let's finish up with just a little bit of a fountain, bringing energy in through the earth into our core, and reversing now, coming down and in. And let's do this one arm at a time. Free flow of personal feedback. So giving yourself some personal feedback of how is this feeling for you? How are you knowing this is the right time to do this? What are you anticipating? How are you responding? What is the flow as you are listening? And let's come to a conclusion. So this is concluding our 2-week focus on the fluid system, and we're going to shift our focus. I'm not going to give it away. You'll have to come on Monday to find what system we're going to be examining for the next couple of weeks. But I do hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day today. I hope you notice for yourself when you're finding these moments of flow, when you're finding sense of blockage, how you can overcome that, or go with it. When is the right time? Is this the right time? And again, thank you to Fulton County Board of Commissioners for providing funding for this series. We will be continuing all the way through the end of December and making our way through this curriculum of body-mind centering work, but also other forms as well involved with Qigong or body weather, some stuff that we'll be doing with it. But thank you so much for being with me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.